I was just rewatching Even Stevens, like through Disney Plus, and I got to that episode in which dang, what is her name? Christy Carlson Romano. She was making fun of Shia LaBeouf, her little brother, and she made that song up. It went, he doesn't like girls because he thinks they're mean. I think he likes boys, if you know what I mean. I was like, oh Lord, no.
Wow.
What's up, everybody? My name is Michael Stephenson. Welcome to my YouTube channel. You are currently watching my art/entertainment industry series in which I talk mainly about film, television, with sprinkling in of book publishing, as well as some music recording, etc. So I ask that if this is your first time on my channel, that you please go back and watch some of my foundational videos, or my first couple of videos. I call them foundational videos because I'm trying to form a particular lingo or language here on the channel specifically, so that you guys know what I say when I say something like the Avatar era or the Lost effect. I've already explained those ideas so that in later on videos like now, hopefully we could have a shorthand between me and you. So with that being said, oh God, we got to talk about the MSheU. So I actually said this in one of my previous videos, and I think it was, God, I can't remember what the name of the video was. It's one of the most recent episodes, of course, since we're still in my Marvel month, which is now turning into like 2 months. But I think it was maybe Miss Focus or something to that extent. Marvel Miss Focus. You can look for that episode. And so in that video, I highlighted 3 things that I think that, in my opinion, the Marvel fandom is focusing on that really aren't important. They're really not things that we should actually be focused on. And I said that 2 of them I already covered, but and I think that they didn't require another video for me to cover them in depth. But this one, I said that the MSheU, this idea of the MSheU, I was going to cover in another video. The problem is that I wanted to make this video basically on the same night that I recorded that video. And I just realized that, like, my brain just went numb trying to think about the criticism that I was going to have here, mainly because, listen, I hate to say it, and I know I'm probably speaking mostly to guys, and probably even speaking mostly to guys who identify as conservative or right-wing or ultra-right-wing or alt-right-wing or whatever. But the MSheU thing is just the dumbest thing ever. I don't, oh God, I don't even know. It's just such a foolish and ridiculous criticism of the current MCU. I just don't even know how to criticize it in and of itself. It's so dumb. I think what it is, the problem that I'm having with it is that, in my opinion, labeling the new MCU the MSheU, because it has a lot of women, a lot of girls and women in it now, is so dumb to me because it's so shallow. Like, I don't even, there's almost no real backing to the rest of the criticism there. Like, oh my God, they have a lot of female characters now. Ugh. What? What? Because, and listen, I apologize if this video, it feels sort of like, it's just a stream of various paragraphs that don't really link together. I've been having quite a few of my videos have been like that as of late, especially when talking about Marvel, because things just pop into my head and I kind of want to talk about that. I go off on tangents, etc. But for this one specifically, there's so much emptiness there that it bothers me. So first off, I guess let's start with this idea of the emptiness. I could understand, and this was some weeks ago now, when I made my MC Youth video, and you can check that, it's a few episodes back, as I said. The criticism about, or the criticism around the MCU going seemingly a lot younger, I understand that criticism. That criticism makes sense to me. I can get behind it, even though I vehemently disagree. In that video, my conclusion was that I actually think that them going a bit younger is a good thing, especially because when you look around, there's quite literally almost nothing at the box office or even on TV that is geared specifically for teenagers and a teenage audience, or even like a young adult audience. Not really. The show, which shall not be named, yes, it's sort of kind of it's supposed to be for teens, but when you start watching it, you realize that yeah, this really isn't for teens like at all. Not really. It's more for adults who sort of want to reminisce about what it was like to be a teenager, or who are like, well, yeah, basically that's who it's really for. It's not really for teenagers or even young adults slash new adults like the 19, the 20, the 21, etc. So I thought that even though I disagreed with the youth movement, or rather I disagreed with the criticism, I think that them going younger is actually a good thing. But I spelled it out in that video specifically. I said, listen, I think it's okay if they go younger, so long as they keep stuff like the Young Avengers and whatnot. Y'all should keep that on Disney Plus. You don't have to put the younger characters and the Young Avengers and whatnot into the films. Like, I would love to see, well, I can't say I would love to see it because I'm kind of tired of X-Men, to be honest with you, after so many years. That's one of the reasons why I don't even want to see Deadpool, Wolverine, that, and of course the promise that I made to myself to not see any more MCU films in the theaters post-Endgame. But I would sort of kind of like to see, let's put it that way. I wouldn't love to see it, but I would sort of kind of like to see X-Men is pretty much the perfect property to bifurcate, to divide, to where you could have the main X-Men, the teachers pretty much that we know of, Cyclops, a new Wolverine, Professor X, Magneto, Mystique, Jean Grey. You could have them, and Storm even, you could have them potentially as the teachers in the same way that they did in the first Fox iteration of the X-Men. You can have them as teachers and have them in the movies, but then you can have other characters like, was it Iceman and Nightcrawler. You can have them be the students and have their sort of like high school drama sort of playing out on Disney Plus. I would actually like that. Having them separated like that, I think that would be cool. And maybe occasionally you could have one or two young characters from the X-Men Disney Plus series crossover to X-Men the films. But I'm like, having X-Men already has this gigantic cast, right? There's so many of them. You can trying to put them all into the movies, to me, almost seems wasteful, and that's one of the problems that I had with the Fox movies, is that there always seemed to be essentially too many characters and too much stuff trying to go on at once. So I get the criticism that, oh man, it's going too young, especially because there are so many middle-aged nerds and you know, Schweddies, as John Schnepp, rest in peace, would have said were he around. But I don't get the MSheU thing. I just don't. It just makes no sense from any standpoint except of, like, yeah, we just want to be overtly sexist. Like, that's pretty much the only criticism that I can. Yeah, that's the only thing that I can see coming out of this whole MSheU thing. It makes, like I said, it makes almost no sense to me. So first we have to go and we have to talk about this argument of women not liking comic book movies or comic books, I guess, to some extent. The argument basically goes that why are they making the MCU into the MSheU? Because comic books and comic book movies are always and have always been more geared toward boys, or to males, to boys, to men, all that stuff. And I guess I sort of get that argument, but at the same time, I really don't. Listen, and we'll cover this. As I've said before, I'm trying to do my videos in a particular order, and so I'm trying to cover like big topics that are affecting the film and television industry, and really all of entertainment, and how they are shaping the world and shaping our viewpoints of things. And so I've mentioned plenty of times before that one of the things that I'm going to cover eventually is gender, the sort of gender wars and how we're viewing things through gender, everything from how we write different characters, how we write women versus how we write men, male gaze, all that stuff, the sexism, all that stuff. So I'm going to most likely address this again in the near future. But if we are being honest, and this is weirdly enough been one of the things that men have kind of hated and are, I guess, in some ways pushing back on, which now that I think about it, in and of itself, this is an irony. It's sort of almost a paradoxical irony, so to speak, is that women, well, girls, females in general, girls and women, for whatever reason, they tend to love whatever men love. So, well, not for whatever reason. I know what the reason is. I filmed the video for it, but I haven't released the video yet. But suffice it to say that women almost always follow whatever men like, whatever men are doing, wherever men are, women pretty much go. So to say that, oh, comics books have always been a boys thing, have always been for men, have always been this, that, blah, 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 yada, 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 that kind of is just ignoring the fact that women and girls, eventually they were definitely going to follow boys and men over to comic books and start reading a whole lot of comic books and start liking comic book movies. Just having a product that could potentially cater to them even a little bit seems like a smart business move to me. From Disney, from the Marvel comics, from Marvel Studios, it kind of all seems like, yeah, that's just smart business. To have something that will cater to girls, because the smart business person knows, or they should know, that eventually, if they haven't been there yet, the girls are going to get there eventually. They just are. That's what women do. Men will establish something for themselves, and then women will come and say, hey, we want in on that. And eventually they get in on it. So this whole idea of, oh God, it's just for boys, blah, blah, blah. Like, yeah, except no. There have always been nerdy girls. It's just that they tend to get ignored, just in some ways almost similarly to how nerdy boys generally got ignored. I think what it is more than anything is that for a very long time, and even still today, I hate to say this, but the comic book nerds, the comic book nerdy girls, usually, oh God, I really hate saying this. I really hate going there, especially this early. But usually they were not necessarily as, I guess, attractive in some senses to the nerdy boys. Boys were always looking at, their dream girls, the cheerleaders and stuff like that, the incredibly vivacious, curvy cartoon and anime characters, etc., etc. So the nerdy girls was just sort of pushed to the side as if they didn't exist in some ways. But it's like, no, they exist. There are women who are into comic books. There are women who like comic book movies. And no, it's not just because they want to see a superhero dude take off his shirt like a Thor or Captain America. They like the action and all that, and the storytelling just as much as we do. So why is it bad to make a few superheroines that come in and also do the same thing as the superheroes? They come in, they save the day, they want to save people, they want to take care of people, etc., etc. I don't understand the criticism against that. I think it's dumb. Okay, so then we move on to this sort of she-boss thing, right? Or girl boss idea. I think that this is where the majority of the MSheU criticism really stems from. This idea that a lot of you all feel that as males, as boys, as men, you all are being replaced in some way by women. And I can get this criticism, I can understand it, but man, it's kind of pushing it. So this whole idea that pretty much all of the female superheroes that we've had, or superheroines that we've had, live within this or are couched within this particular idea is straight up just wrong. Let's keep it real, fresh and funky. We only had legitimately one really deeply entrenched girl boss sort of property within the MCU post Endgame that really did dig into the whole women are better, men are just sort of losers, the whole girls rule and dudes drool kind of thing. And it wasn't even a movie. We all know what it was. It was She-Hulk. Now, yes, even I can admit, and I fully and wholly agree, She-Hulk was pretty terrible. it was bad. Even knowing that, again, a lot of you all are not. There were a lot of people who don't really know almost anything about She-Hulk. So when the whole criticism about, oh my God, She-Hulk is breaking character and she's trying to be Deadpool, she's breaking the fourth wall rather. A lot of people didn't know that that's what She-Hulk routinely does. So they were ticked off at this idea that, oh, she's like trying to replace Deadpool. And it's like, no, there are a few characters that routinely break the fourth wall in comic books in general. And she just happens to be one along with Deadpool. But as I said, I completely get behind you guys. I'm standing there right along with you in that She-Hulk was pretty bad on a lot of different levels. Like it just was on a lot of different levels. It wasn't even just the fact that it was a female-led show or anything. It was more so the writing was not that great. And yeah, like I said, it did have the girl boss thing in it. But when you look at pretty much all the other stuff that is female-led, a lot of it, and I'm looking mainly at the Marvels. I'm gonna do a video for the Marvels on its own, but I'm probably gonna talk quite a bit about it in the next couple of minutes here. But when you look at most of the movies, not the TV shows, but the movies in which they are female-led, most of them are not a girl boss type of thing. In fact, most of them don't really have that in almost any real capacity at all. Not really. I mean, I'm trying to think. WandaVision doesn't have that. WandaVision honestly just has great writing. It doesn't have this whole thing of the girls are trying to, or the women are trying to replace the men for some reason. It doesn't have that. God, was it Eternals? Eternals didn't really have that either. Eternals was also a bad movie. It was just an incredibly poorly written, poorly constructed film. But as far as, oh, we're trying to replace men some way, somehow, like, no, that just wasn't in the plot. That wasn't part of the film. So placing it in this sort of realm of, oh God, it's part of the MSheU and it's ruining things. Like, no, not really. It was as bad as Thor: Dark World, in my opinion. Both of them are terrible movies, but just the fact that they had a lot of female characters in it, and the Eternals, of course, it was mixed in. There were men and women in that thing, so it wasn't even like it was specifically just one gender ruling the whole movie, the whole plot. Then you had, of course, Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and obviously that was sort of just an impossible situation. So it's one of the reasons why I just kind of discount Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. But as a side note, one of the reasons why I disliked the first Black Panther, oddly enough, and I hate to say this because it's such a terrible thought to think, especially knowing the whole circumstances of what happened and all this stuff. But I watched that movie, I want to say 2 times, once in the theater and then, of course, once when it came on TV. And I remember thinking both times that the Black Panther in and of himself was essentially superfluous to the plot. And I kept thinking it the whole time, that as I was watching the first movie, I was like, you know what? They could essentially eliminate the Black Panther, and I don't think they would lose almost anything in the movie. I hate what happened with the whole situation with Chadwick, but I also kind of both hate and in some ways feel vindicated that I was pretty much right. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, for those of you who don't seem to know or who don't break down these movies in a real narrative and plot structure type of way, it's pretty much the exact same movie as Black Panther. Like, almost beat for beat. Yes, they add in some stuff with, Namor and showing the history of his culture, but outside of that, it's very similar. Like, it's very similar to Black Panther. And I don't know. You can restructure a few things here and there, but you kind of get the same movie. And so I can't really as far as the MSheU goes, I can't really say that, oh man, having all these women in it kind of ruined the movie or something like that. They were in the first one too. They were like, the women were pretty much the strength of both of those films. So if you like the first one, I don't know why you would dislike the second one outside of the fact that there is no Chadwick. So I don't know. I just, let's just put that movie on a shelf for right now until I do my video for the Black Panther franchise. But then you also have Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness. Just adding that little girl. Well, she wasn't a little girl. She's a young woman. Was she a teenager? I don't know. I think she was of legal age. I don't know. Again, that's how I delineate between a woman and a girl, right? 18 or over women. But just adding her into the movie did not make that movie a terrible movie. Let's keep it real. It didn't. If you had changed her gender to a dude, it would have been the same terrible movie. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness, I feel like it's one of those movies that kind of gets a little bit better with each successive viewing, because you sort of give into just the weirdness and the kind of, I don't know, the scenes seem to slip from one to the next. So you kind of just give into that and go with it. But again, just her being in there did not adversely affect the property. It wasn't made worse by her being there. And as far as, oh God, she's complaining, she's angsty. Like, yeah, she was playing a teenager. She was playing a teenager. That's what teenagers do. Teenagers are annoying to everybody, especially adults, but they're also annoying to themselves and to each other. So I got it. I understood. And if I'm being honest, that's kind of one of the things that I feel like has been missing from the Peter Parker character, really since Tobey Maguire did Peter Parker. But see, I liked Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker as well, is that dude is almost never angsty as a teenager. And Tom Holland's Spider-Man, we've seen him as a teenager the longest, and he's annoying, but he's not like teenager annoying, if I could say that. So I don't know. Like I said, I just think that her being in the movie did not change the way that I would have felt about the movie if her gender was different, if it was a male. It just didn't change it at all. I'm thinking of, God, what else? Like, what are the other movies? Oh, Thor: Love and Thunder. Now, Thor: Love and Thunder. Thor: Love and Thunder, I think, is actually the toughest one, because again, it's not even. Yeah, that's the toughest one. That's the toughest one, because on the one hand, Lady Thor is a character in the comic book, so it's not like, and you know, she has cancer and all that stuff, so it's not like they weren't following in the comic book lore. It wasn't like they departed super bigly, to use a Trumpian term, from the source material, which is something that we oftentimes love as film goers and as TV watchers, right? But did it have some sort of a she boss or girl boss mentality to it? I don't know. Maybe you can say that, yeah, it had a little bit of that, but I feel oftentimes like it was sort of a playful banter between her and Thor. You know, they're going back and exploring this love relationship that they once had and that they kind of miss. Both of them are torn up about it. So it kind of felt natural to me, that progression there. Now, did I like the movie overall? No, the movie was not. It had a lot of things missing to it. The comedy was off. I talked about that in my Marvel comedy video. It just had a lot of writing problems, a lot of directing problems as well. So it wasn't a good movie. But again, I don't think that it was adversely affected by Lady Thor nor by Valkyrie in this sort of buddy, sort of road trip comedy that they were doing all together. So then you finally get to, I know I'm probably missing one, but you finally get to, oh no, Ant-Man and the Wasp, come on. Was it affected in almost any way by, to be honest with you, I don't think it was affected in any way, weirdly enough, by anything, if I could say that, which is a very strange thing, but the characters weren't memorable. Neither Scott nor, what is her, Van Dyne, you know, the Hope. neither Scott nor Hope, the two titular characters of the movie, really had any kind of character development. But then I can't really say that, was it Cassie? I can't really say that she had character development either, to be honest with you. Yes, you saw a little bit of rebelliousness at the very beginning. She's, using the suit, whatever, whatever. But then after that, the movie just kind of gives over to, I don't know, it gives over to trying to be some sort of fantasy adventure knockoff, like a Lord of the Rings, or of course, a lot of people have compared it to Star Wars, if you want to go there, I guess. It was just, there was nothing about it that you could hold on to. And the fact that Cassie was a main or big character in the film didn't really change the film all that much, to be honest with you. In fact, I almost don't even think that she was necessary for the plot. Like, I feel you could have cut her out and just had the whole little machine and whatnot that she had built to communicate with the quantum realm. You could have just had what's his name, Michael Douglas's character, Hank Pym. You could just had Hank Pym build that. Like, yeah, I've been messing around with it ever since I went to the quantum realm to get you, Janet, and have it. Yeah, like I said, most of these characters, these female characters, my whole point about this MSheU thing is that they did not change they did not necessarily change the hue, so to speak, or the color grade of these films and of the MCU in general. And so then when you finally do get to the Marvels, which it was legitimately the MCU's big box office flop, and you actually look back at that movie, it's almost like, God, I wonder why the heck it legitimately flopped. Because I'm sure, and I know for a fact, that, well, first off, everybody hates Brie Larson. Now, I've talked about people hating Brie Larson, and to an extent, our stars or our celebrities, millennial stars and celebrities, a lot. As I've said in my cycle video, you can go back and check it, where I broke down all of the different generations and their subconscious, they think and how they feel, and how it affects their actions, etc. I said that millennials, we have an internalized hatred of self. We absolutely hate ourselves, and that, of course, then translates into how we treat and think about our stars or our celebrities, which is why we don't actually want our celebrities to be stars, because we kind of hate them. Like, we really do. We just really do, as opposed to Gen Xers and baby boomers who they felt far differently about their stars. We just constantly want to stomp out the light of our millennial celebrities. But saying that, even if you can get past the whole Brie Larson thing, and I have, looking at that movie, you would think, with all the criticism online, that would be a super big girl boss kind of movie, to where they would almost always have the girls at some point turning to the camera and maybe even breaking the fourth wall, like She-Hulk, just to say some demeaning thing about men. Like, man, if Dar-Benn was a man, this film would have already been over. Or, God, I don't even know. I don't know. Think of something silly and ridiculous that something silly and ridiculous that a super aggressive feminist would say. It almost felt very much so like a lot of people were expecting to see something like that in the Marvels, which is why they stayed away from the film. And it's a big nope. It's a big nope. Now, don't get me wrong. Captain Marvel, I guess I will give you. Even though, number one, this is pre-Endgame, right? It was the last movie released before Endgame. But yeah, I guess you can say that it did have a little bit of girl bossing in there, right? You had the montage of her constantly getting up. Most of her adversaries throughout her life, the people who told her no and that she couldn't do this thing, were men. They delved into the whole idea of the flight program. The U.S. Air Force. She was U.S. Air Force, right? I'm fairly certain she was. How women couldn't actually fly real missions back in the 80s and into the 90s. So, yes, I get it. I understand that it did talk about maleness and talk about how dudes are sort of putting a cap on, or a restriction on, what women can do. So I will give that one to you. But also, that movie, remember, made $1 billion. So it's not like it's not like it was in some way, shape, or form so offensive to people that people were like, yeah, word of mouth spread. Yeah, you shouldn't go see this movie, et cetera, et cetera. And I get it. I understand. A lot of people knew that, well, she's going to be in Endgame, so I guess I better go see this movie. I get that. But I still feel like there weren't a whole lot of people who went to go see that movie when you consider the box office of Endgame versus the box office of Captain Marvel. Clearly, a ton more people went to see Endgame without having ever seen Captain Marvel. Then you come to the Marvels, and I hate to say it, but the Marvels pretty much did everything right when it comes to this kind of stuff, when it comes to the whole girl boss ideology. And honestly, when it comes to in a wider berth, it did everything right when it comes to the whole wokeness or anti-wokeness, whatever that's supposed to mean, ideology as well. Number one, it didn't have any sort of it didn't have any sort of reference to girls or females, women in general, being better than men in some way, shape, or form. It didn't have any reference to men somehow keeping women or keeping girls in their quote unquote place or putting them into restrictive boxes or anything like that. It just didn't have any of that. Like, it really didn't. It wasn't trying to beat up on guys in any way, shape, or form. And looking back on it, not only did it not have the whole beating up on guys thing figuratively, but it really didn't have that literally either. One of my biggest criticisms for not just superheroine movies, but specifically also for action movies led by women, and I know that some of you have had this criticism as well, is that we see oftentimes the sort of slight-framed, very thin, very petite woman seemingly beating up on a lot of dudes. Now, listen, if you've ever seen, let's start with this. If you've ever seen Brie Larson, her social media presence online, you know that, look, she stay in that gym. She stay in that gym. She got some serious muscle. And the 6-pack on her, it's really an 8-pack. My God. Oh, Lord. I love me a good 6 or 8-pack on a woman. I really like that. But see, she also still has some of the curves and whatnot that some of you guys like. She don't have any, she don't really have a butt, which is, I'm a butt man. But she has a pretty decent body. I'll say that. So it's not incredibly ridiculous to think that she would be able to beat up on a dude, especially since, she's also a superheroine. She has powers. So, but even then, as I said, the criticism that I've always had is that they always, when there's a male hero, they'll place him against a male villain. But then, even when there's a female superhero or superheroine or heroine in general in an action film, they still tend to place them against an evil man. And I've always thought that was a problem. In Wonder Woman, in both Wonder Womans, in fact, they did it. They didn't let Dr. Poison be the main villain in Wonder Woman, in Wonder Woman 1. And I keep calling like every movie in its sequel Part 1 and Part 2 because Dune is still on my mind. They didn't let Cheetah be the main villain in Wonder Woman 1984. Similarly, both of them were always working essentially under, or they were outshined in some ways by the main male villain, by the dude. Similarly, in Black Widow, yes, Taskmaster was there, but number one, you didn't even know that Taskmaster was a woman until very, very late into the movie, near the end of the film. And then number two, even though she was a villain, she technically wasn't the main villain. The main villain was her father. So it was another dude. The Marvels did everything right with that. They were like, yeah, we had a male villain, Jude Law, in the first one, along with a sort of female villain in, God dang it, what is the freaking name of that thing? What is it, I just had to name it, and I can't remember it again. The Central Intelligence or something like that? I don't know. But it was played by Annette Bening, right? And so it was appearing as a woman. but she still had to fight Jude Law in that one. In this one, she didn't have to fight any. Yes, she had to fight some henchmen, of course, but she never had to fight a male true villain. It was always Dar-Benn, and Dar-Benn was played by a woman in this one. So I'm trying to figure out, like, what did y'all want? Really, we didn't see constantly a thin-framed, frail, petite woman, or even a girl, a teenage girl, fighting against a grown, big behemoth, super muscular man. We saw women fighting against women. So it wasn't like, again, the girl boss thing didn't play into it in any way, shape, or form. It was a non-factor. It was not a thing in the Marvels. And then on top of that, to even express or to address some of the quote unquote, oh God, Disney and Marvel have gone too woke in it. Like, the Marvels had almost no wokeness in it at all, as I said before. Like I said, I'm going into the Marvels because of how big of a flop it became, and the reason, and how it got so much hate. Like, it got a crap ton of hate. And I'll have a video on the Marvels on its own, but just to mention a few things here, it showed a traditional nuclear family with Miss Marvel and her parents and her older brother. I believe he's older. Yeah, I want to say he's older. Yeah, because it's been a while since I actually watched the TV series, which I liked. But nuclear family there. It showed women actually getting along, them working their problems out together, true friendship bond, not a lesbian-like bond. Let's keep it real. Speaking of that, there was no, if you are going to be anti-LGBTQ, like, well, this may have been the movie for you, because I don't remember any LGBTQ stuff in the whole film. Like, from what I can remember, I can't remember a single thing in there that was LGBTQ. Not a single thing. None of it. There wasn't, like, I'm trying to think, maybe they did have it in there somewhere, but if it was in there, it was so subtle that it just passed by and you didn't even notice it, because it wasn't like Monica Rambeau had a secret girlfriend or anything. No. Instead, we had Captain Marvel. She was secretly married to a dude. Now, I guess you can, if you're racist, you can make a big stink about how she was married to an Asian dude. It was an interracial couple. Or maybe if you're super religious and super Christian, you can make a stink about how, oh God, they're tearing apart the sacredness, the sanctity of marriage, and that the marriage was a marriage of convenience and not really one of love. But even then, so what? Like, I hate to say that, but it just, none of it just felt like that big of a deal. Now, I get it that it had plot issues, but this whole point of lambasting the movie because it was either part of the MSheU, this sort of female takeover, when it's like, it didn't threaten men in any way, shape, or form. It didn't threaten the male ego from a consumer perspective, and it didn't threaten to be like, oh, Captain Marvel is clearly the biggest and bestest superhero of all time, or throughout all of the MCU now. It didn't even feel like she was so powerful or so overpowered in some sense that I guess she could beat Thor if he just magically showed up on screen. It was like, oh man, Thor, I was just beating up Dar-Benn, I gotta beat you up. I just don't understand it. The whole MSheU thing is giving so much energy of like, it's just giving so much bad energy, and I don't understand why anybody wants to be associated with that much bad energy, especially dudes. I'm like, y'all realize that it's going back, it's taking the whole idea of nerds being neck beard wearing incels who have never even seen a woman, I guess, let alone touched a woman. It's giving that to the max, like times 100. And that's disturbing. That is super disturbing. The level of sexism there. Oh God, we don't want any women in there. Why not? I don't get it, man. Ooh, I really don't. I'm just like, do y'all not even, at the very least, and again, women, ladies, I'm on your side on this one, but I'm about to say something that's fairly sexist and demeaning in and of itself. But fellas, do y'all not at the very least want something to look at in these films? you guys are almost coming in like, oh God, there's too many women in the MCU. Like, okay, should we just eliminate all of the women? You don't want any sort of eye candy anymore? Literally the only two good things that came out of Iron Man 2, the only two good things were Rhodey's War Machine suit, one, and the fact that we got to watch Scarlett Johansson be Black Widow for the first time, and you know, wear that suit that she wore. Oh man. Yeah. So I'm trying to, like, do y'all not want that at all? Do y'all just want to eliminate all the women? That's weird. I don't know. Oh man. Yeah, I keep coming back to that Even Stevens song. What do you guys? And again, I'm not knocking it. We are getting very close to June, and it's going to be a lot of rainbows and stuff. And be who you want to be, but why are you coming in and hating on women being in these movies? It's just not a good look. It's not a good look at all. And coming out and saying it's going to fail just because women are in it, give me a break. Enough with that. I get it. And like I said, I'm going to talk about gender later on. So I'm really not on either side. I'm more of a neutral party here because, yes, I know that there are plenty of things that women globally are messing up on. And there's just plenty of things that men globally are messing up on. And yes, the whole idea of gender roles and all that stuff needs to be worked out again, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not saying that we should just automatically simp or be on the side of women. But I am saying that, look, we've had very few female-led or female-centric superheroine movies. It should not hurt us that they have a few more now. It really should. So, yeah, I didn't even think I was going to be able to talk on this subject for as long as I did. This, weirdly enough, ran way longer, and of course I'm making it longer by doing this little thing right now. So I am out. Leave your comments below. I know a lot of you are going to be like, man, the MCU, you don't understand, blah, blah, blah. Listen, whatever. I don't have a sign off. So while I don't have an official sign off yet, I guess I should do the whole please like, comment, share, and if you so desire and you want to see more, subscribe. But more importantly, I will ask that you please go and purchase one of my books. They are mostly ebooks, and pretty much they are all under $10. See if any of my work is actually any good, if it lives up to any of the things that I'm talking about here on my channel, specifically with the entertainment industry videos. So please go purchase my books. All of my links are down below. Thank you.